What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the GoodeBaker podcast. I'm Nick Baker. Across from me, Shane Good.
It's Gucci.
And we're here to talk to you about some video games. First things first, community question. You guys came through again.
Yeah.
And seems like a lot of you guys prefer cosmetic-only microtransactions. So that's a big deal. I think that I'm right there on your side. Cosmetic...
100%.
Cosmetic microtransactions are the way to go, I think, in my opinion.
I agree. And it's not like it really hurts the company itself because, as we see with massive games like, like League of Legends and, I'm trying to think of games that only do cosmetics, but now I'm realizing that they're just so far and few. But I mean, like PUBG, Fortnite, those are other big ones. They make thousands of dollars off of it.
I think that Fortnite really kind of paved the way for the new age of microtransactions as far as cosmetics go, and I think it's really a good way. I think we're going in the right direction now with microtransactions. Game companies are now on the side of it's going to lose us customers if we're asking them to chunk away at their pocketbook or their wallets after they spend a huge $60 entry fee.
So EA?
Yeah, EA was a big, my goodness, stop this.
You keep getting updates.
Yeah, I know, there we go. Now we're muted. So on to our next question. This week's question is actually pretty topical, but at the same time not.
Seems like.
I've been playing a lot of Pokemon lately. Getting up there, almost finished with the new games, and it got us thinking. Way back when you first played Red and Blue, who did you choose?
Red and Blue?
Oh yeah, Red and Blue.
Oh.
Charmander, Squirtle, or Bulbasaur? That is the question for the week. Let us know on that old Facebook page.
Oh yeah.
Who you chose?
But I mean, I have to know what you chose.
Oh, I'm not shy about it. Charmander, man. We got to do that. Charizard was my favorite Pokemon for the longest time.
That's easy mode.
I think he still is. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, you could think of it in a few different ways. He's actually, for the first gym, that rock gym, he could toast you if you go in there too early with a Charmander.
It's true. It is true. You did get toasted, but for leveling, he was the easiest to level with.
I think that he was a strong competitor in the early game just because you get into that Viridian Forest and you're just toasting. Everything's a bug or grass type.
Yeah, I was going to say, everything's a bug or grass type, and you're like, fireball.
Ember was the bane of many Caterpie's existence. Weedle, too. Fuck those guys. But on to what we've been playing this week. Obviously, like I said, I've been playing a ton of Pokemon. Getting up there, but I've also been playing a ton of Star Wars and enjoying every second of it. It's challenging. It pushes back in just the right way, and the aesthetic of it all is coming together so nicely. The story and everything is coming to a peak, and I really feel like it's going to take a twist here pretty shortly, and I'm excited to play more. Let's just finish up this podcast real quick.
Yeah, so you can go play more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta drive. But what have you been playing, man?
So I've been playing Diablo, obviously. Diablo came out. For the end of, day 1, I was ranked 7. And at the start of... Well, I mean, we're not exactly at the start of day 2, but we're a little bit into day 2, and I'm probably, halfway or something like that, and I've dropped down to rank 50, so I've just got to push back up.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty hard to keep up with that as far as if you're trying to be competitive and stay on the top of the leaderboards.
It's not it's difficult, but at the same time, because I play with a fair group of people, we all kind of keep each other motivated to continue to play. Because the biggest thing about Diablo is you end up falling off because the game is just so repetitive.
I can see that.
Yeah, I've on day 1 I pushed for two augments on 2 pieces of gear, and it's like augmenting something means you have to do, at the very least, I do 90 augments. And augment, every time you do a greater rift, you have a chance to upgrade a legendary gem. If you empower, you get 5 upgrades as long as you don't die in the rift. So you have to do like 20 rifts or something like that to get 100. Which 20 rifts, 3 minutes apiece. You do the math.
Yeah, you have yourself a night.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or
if
a
you're
day, if you're you.
If you're doing it quick, you can do 1 augment every 2 hours. If you're pretty, I mean, you can do it in an hour if you're efficient. But as a demon hunter, there's like a fall off point where like I have to do like a specific level, otherwise it's not worth it because I don't gain like actual levels. But yeah, it's fun. Matter of fact, after we're done this, I'm probably gonna go get another augment. I got 2 primals this season that are actually good, which never happens. One of them is actually given to me. My buddy got an ancient primal compass, Traveler's Pledge. Which Traveler's Pledge, anybody who plays the game knows that it's one of the hardest necks in the game to actually get rolled decently, let alone to roll primal decently. So it's pretty dope.
Damn, dude, it sounds like you got your work cut out for you for the next few hours at least. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we play for the next like 2 weeks, and then
do you have like
comes out.
Like a palate cleanser? Do you like have just like a stupid game that you get burnt out on Diablo? You just like switch back to that?
You know, it's funny you say that because it's ARAMs in League of Legends. Mm-hmm. That's my like, because ARAMs in League of Legends it takes no brain at all. Like it's
just.
Yeah, are you familiar with what it is?
No, I'm not.
So you know what League of Legends is, the like 3 lanes, 5v5. ARAMs is the epitome of running it down mid. It's 1 lane, and there's 1 line of minions. There's 3 towers and a nexus instead of like fucking 13 towers and a nexus.
So it's like a quick play version of the game, but it's like not as strategic. It's just
exactly. It's fighting all the time.
Grinder, yeah.
You'll see upwards of like 60 to 70 kills, like total in the game. But the big thing is that it's all random, all mid. That's what ARAM stands for. So you don't get to pick your champion. The game just randomly assigns you a character. Which keeps it kind of just different and interesting. So that's what I do to just kind of like clear when I get like if I'm like almost asleep playing Diablo, I'll go play an ARAM, and it usually like wakes me up because I'm salty about how terrible my team is.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So that's good. That's what we've been playing, and this is a short list of big topics of the week, but I think this first one's a pretty big one for a lot of people. Half-Life Alyx, a VR title in the Half-Life series, was announced by Valve. They released a gameplay trailer showing some story elements and stuff like that. It's beautiful, first thing.
It really does look pretty.
We watched a breakdown on IGN, and the game looks pretty ambitious for what it is. You see a lot of just moving parts, which for a VR game seems pretty taxing, I think. And I think that's why it's not, why it's just PC exclusive, and they're not even fiddling with PSVR at this point, because I just don't think it could handle a game like this. But that said, man, it looks enticing, and I actually just can't wait to hear more, and it gives me hope for the people that are really excited about Half-Life and a possible Half-Life 3.
I mean,
that could happen.
Definitely looked really interesting. The art style on it was really, really pretty. The only thing that I can really think of to compare to it in my head is Escape from Tarkov, because Escape from Tarkov is like the most graphically intense game I've ever tried to play. And that game is like, it looks, the environment itself has more detail in it. And I mean, in the video that they have in the gameplay, like, you're looking at guys that are directly in front of you, but in the distance you can see details on buildings, and you can see, like, it doesn't seem like there's any pixelation at all. It seems very, very, like, photorealistic. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think that's more of a big deal in a VR game than it is in just a standard console or PC title, single player, in any aspect. It when the headset is right there on your face and you can literally see every pixel, I think it just needs to be perfect. And it looks like this game is pushing that line back, where you kind of see the what they're calling gravity gloves.
Yeah.
There's like moving ticking numbers on each glove, and there's little heart indicators that change, and all of your HUD, it seems like, is right there on your gloves, so it's always in view, but it's kind of dynamic too. So that really interested me as far as like technical power that this game's kind of trying to push. Also, the lighting looks ridiculous. I'm sure that the ray tracing that the new processors and stuff like that are working on is going to be utilized in that very well.
It's probably, if I had to guess, they probably got a lot of dev kits, especially where it's Steam. Obviously, Valve is a big company. They probably got a lot of dev kits. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Just dropping the pocketbook down. This is the second time I said pocketbook this podcast. What's wrong with me?
You've never said pocketbook before.
I can't stop saying it.
Damn it!
I can't stop hearing it. God.
I mean, closing out with this, I think that it's easier in some ways to make VR look prettier than it is to make a high resolution look prettier, because you're talking two screens that are like, what are they, like 2 inches by 3 inches, or 2 inches by 2 inches. Like, essentially they just like cover your eyeball, like two screens that cover your eyeball at like 1080p or even 4K, depending on, like, if this takes long enough to get to that new Oculus Rift. So
I imagine that it'll probably be on that.
Yeah.
Just from what we can see already.
Yeah, I would say so, but I'm curious to see if this comes out with the new whatever NVIDIA puts out for a new graphics card. Because I can see right now that that game probably wouldn't run super well on something like a 1060 or even like a 2060. It would probably need something like a 1080 Ti or something, with how much just graphic
something with
intensity.
a little bit more meat on the bones.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I believe that too. It looks intense, and honestly, the way the guy that was narrating that video was describing each of the creatures, I'm like, that's gotta be fucking absolutely crazy in VR. Like, having those things just attached to your face and like come at you from all different directions, and I think that's one thing that VR hasn't quite gotten down. We were talking about it last week with the movement of that new VR title that they were coming out with, the robot one. Lost it, but,
I forget what the name of it was,
but I think enemy AI in a VR game, it seems, from just what we've seen, it seems a little smarter, more aggressive.
Yeah.
And I think that putting that in a VR space is going to make you stress the fuck out.
I definitely agree with that. And I think that, it's kind of weird, because I wouldn't consider Half-Life a horror game.
No.
But once you go into VR and shit's coming at you, I mean, anything can kind of become a horror game.
Right.
Or kind of like a suspenseful game, because you have to deal with something front and center, and it puts a different light on your mind. You
know what this instantly made me think of, and you reminded me of it, is if they did these VR, something like this, but with an Until Dawn type thing, a real horror experience where it's not necessarily about fighting or anything like that. It's more about using your environment or running or hiding or trying just to escape. I think that would be, or maybe like an Outlast.
Yeah.
Outlast in VR would be terrifying, and I would love it.
It would definitely be really interesting. It would take so much, because like if you think of what is like important in a horror game, and it's like sound, visuals, and then gameplay.
Right.
So it would be really like all the things that right now VR is still trying to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
Like dynamic sound is a really big one, and it's probably, I would imagine, really hard to have dynamic sound in a VR game. That would be,
you can so quickly change the direction of your view, and that would change the direction of the sound and all of that. I mean, they've gotten pretty close with a lot of the first-person shooters now, with like Call of Duty and I mean, this new Call of Duty was having trouble with footsteps being like the sound of a gunshot. Like these guys are like upstairs from you, but they sound like they're just hitting the side of your head with a bat. But Battlefield got it really, really well.
Yeah, Battlefield's done a great job.
You can just, when you're in a building, you can hear like the creaking of the floorboards, and the snow from the snowy area houses just drips down from the ceiling. You're like, oh man, somebody upstairs. We got to do this. But yeah,
definitely.
That Half-Life Alyx really makes me excited for the future of VR. But you know what makes me excited for the future of horror games is Resident Evil 3 remake, and that was rumored by some reports that Kotaku got this week, reportedly coming out in 2020.
That's pretty close.
It's really close. It's a really short turnaround from Resident Evil 2 that came out this year to rave reviews.
Yep.
As you remember, obviously, I loved that game too. I played it to death.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't personally play it, but I had a lot of friends that have played it, and I've watched like a pretty good amount of it. I wonder if that'll be like in release in like March, or I wonder if that'll be a release after E3.
I'm thinking that it would be beautiful if they could hit like the same kind of window that they hit with Resident Evil 2 remake, but
yeah,
I think this is just still too early of a report to expect like a beginning of the year. I think it's early even for 2020 with the ambitious scope that they had for Resident Evil 2. But that said, late 2020 I think is probably a good bet. And Capcom hasn't really released anything other than Iceborne in the later part of the year.
Right.
In a while, I can't really think of the last thing.
And I mean, especially if they were working on like Resident Evil 2 and also had a small portion of the team working on Resident Evil 3 to kind of like get it ready. That way they could line up this like, boom, Resident Evil 2, boom, Resident Evil 3, boom, Resident Evil 46. You know, like...
yeah. Man.
They come out fast nowadays.
Yeah. It was like, whoa, where's the last 37 of these things? You know? I didn't want to do the math.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think a lot of the groundwork is laid out for them with, as far as the engine goes, if they just use the Resident Evil 2 engine like they did with Devil May Cry.
Yep.
Just keep going with that. It's so beautiful, and it works so well for those games that I think that they could just churn it out like that. But I don't know what the technical like turnaround would be for something like that. If say let's give another example, like Breath of the Wild. If they have all the assets, all the engine, everything that they need.
Yeah.
And all they need to do is create a story that works in that world, or create another slightly changed world from the map that they have. How long that would take?
I really think it depends on like... I think remaking games is definitely probably easier because you take out the creative aspect of it and you just input we have the characters we need, we have the story we want, we have the map, we don't have the level design. All we have to do is recreate the sounds, recreate the visuals, and then occasionally they will rewrite in pieces of the story that 2 games later came out to not really make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So they like reword like a couple pieces of the story, or they like. So I feel like the turnaround for it's definitely a lot faster than if you are like, you know, like in the Breath of the Wild situation where you're making like an entirely new map. You have to think of all these little details.
Right. I think that what they did with 2 impressed me most, just because they didn't really change the fundamental layout of everything, because everything was kind of in a similar position, but they made it seem on a grander scale, and everything just worked better, was more fluid. Backtracking didn't seem so taxing. There were shortcuts. Everything worked that way. So if they can kind of go in that direction with 3, make it really modern, easy to play, not like, you know, skill level easy, but, you know, like the tank controls, those were a mess. Like, if they can just keep on this same track that they had with 2, I think it's going to blow everybody's minds, just like 2 did. So,
you know what's a game that I'd love to be remastered? It's just reminded me of it. Oh gosh darn it! It went right out of my head. Keanu Reeves was in it. It's early 2000s Matrix. There we go.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Enter the Matrix game.
Yeah, I thought that game was actually really cool, and then I watched all of the glitches in it, and I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah. I was one of those kids that absolutely loved The Matrix, and that game hit me right where it needed to, and I loved that game.
Yeah, man.
The slow motion gave me like super big Max Payne vibes, and honestly, the
mission where
characters
you shoot out
that you had
planes
that you could play in that game, because you could play as 2. You could play as